close in. And we have it there, just sort of set it up. It looks like the lighting is actually pretty good here. So this is the Xerox 860 IPS, which stands for, and we have David Linder coming into focus. Wait a minute, Digibarn TV introduces David Linder from North Vancouver, British Columbia, who is presenting today a
Xerox 860 IPS in full functioning order. Yep, I got this in I think 1990, 1991 from a small oil service company in Alberta who, up till the time I picked it up, was using it in daily operation. But I think they basically found that the upkeep and maintenance on it was costing them a little bit too much, so they were eager to dispose of it. So a friend of mine that worked there, that I had known from school, called me up and said, "Hey, they got this old machine here, do you want to come check it out?" And so I did, and I've lugged it around now for the last
16 years.
Moved 3 times, and still carried it every time. And yep, then came across the web looking for more information about it, and came across the Digibarn, and there was a call out for Xerox equipment. And, well, here you go. Here's a piece of Xerox equipment.
Here's a piece of Xerox equipment.
Xerox history. And yeah, I mean, in 1991 to 93, I had this in my office, and I would use it for writing memos and the like, mostly for the nostalgia and novelty of it, but worked perfectly fine. And I had a numerous floppies and all that stuff, and was able to print on the nice printer, and people come to my office and have a good laugh when they check it out. And but it was pretty cool, and the portrait display and all that stuff, again, and the cat, which, the trackpad as we all call it today. And
can you give us a little on-screen tour?
Sure.
So we're seeing the cat here, which I think stood for, I can't remember.
I think it's a capacitive. I can't.
It's something.
Recall that.
It's Googleable.
Yeah, Googleable, yeah. So yeah, you could. Store document. It's waiting for an answer. All right. So now, page down, you can line by line and pick a particular.
So we're seeing a file being picked here, and the underlying operating system here is CP/M. And look at those disk drives go. So we've got 2-inch floppies, and we've got a hard drive as well in there.
I don't know. Is there a hard drive?
There may not be.
I don't think so. I don't think it'll boot without a floppy.
Without
you have to
a floppy.
make a system floppy. So
Okay.
This one here.
There we go. So it really is a hard driveless. Yeah, from a system from 1980, probably just a little bit before the hard drive era.
So yeah, without the floppy, it won't start up.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. So let's look at.
Let's see. Get the cat to go here. The cat seems to have seen better days.
So the cat's sort of doing a vertical. We can sort of see it moving a little bit on the left-hand side. It's doing a vertical movement through a document. So this is a computer graphics report of September 1992. And you're touching the cat here, and but of course you can probably use all the cursor keys too.
Yeah. Of course, I can't remember how to use all that because it's been a few days.
Yeah, we have format, program, search, store. We've got paragraph, line. And you'd think there'd be the cursor keys at the regular place. Oh, you're putting in.
All right.
Okay, so you put a line in there.
Okay.
Okay. Oh, this is a test and it works. So you had a font selection there.
The fonts are controlled, I think, by
the
daisy wheel, but you can also pick like underline and bold, that type of thing.
Yeah. Yeah, so you've got line, word, character. That looks like. Okay, so you've got. There we go. He's putting in text into the document.
Oh, up there it tells you. There you go.
Okay,
Underline,
so
bold.
all right, we've got underline, bold, overlay, character. Tells you the line and character. It's good word processor of the time. And here we come down. Inverse. Oh my goodness.
Yeah, there was a reverse. I think. Not that I remember how to use it.
I remember trying to use inverse on a resume. It was a cool but somewhat useless effect. So really, it's page mode oriented. So here's page number 2. Secretaries love this. I mean, this was the Cadillac, or maybe even the Rolls Royce of secretarial workstations. Okay, here we
And then
go.
there's a format page as well, where you can control all
Tremendous.
the margins, tab spacing, and the pitch, so that it would print properly.
So this is like the format, the document prop sheet
Yeah, that you're used to.
that you're used to, but it's a separate page.
And there was unacceptable answer. Well, see, at least it told you in English.
Okay,
It
so it
say
says
error 3264.
unacceptable number. Re-enter. Hey, and didn't have an annoying pop-up.
Ha!
I love the sound of the floppy as it pulls that document in. It just gives you a reassuring feeling that something's happening. Okay, you highlight it?
Oh yeah, highlight it. Okay, that's how I did that before. Yeah, when you pick underline, then everything you highlighted is
It's
underlined.
underlined, yeah. So that's the keyboard keys here. The typical Xerox design of putting everything on the keyboard, which makes a whole lot of sense. So you have to now do Control U and such things, such nonsensical two-handed keys.
Not intuitive at all.
Oh, here's the front panel. Look at this. Let's look at the diagnostics. So what's funny about this is that it's a big workstation format, but it's actually a CPM machine running in reverse video with some font selections, which is unusual because CPM didn't have that really. So the Xerox must have modified CPM and display driver, put a display driver in it to do this. Because your typical CPM machine had
No knowledge of fonts.
if it had uppercase and lowercase, you were lucky. Okay, can we go back to the file manager?
Yeah.
So this word processor just called a word processor. So here's our main screen there. So what have we got up there? We've got
So you got the two different floppy drives, the left floppy and the right floppy. So we can alternate between the two. And
How
then
interesting.
Then it loads the directory of the other floppy.
right. So it does.
And it shows you when their documents were created, revised,
Okay.
as well as the number of pages in the documents and the number of sectors on the disk it took up as well. So
It says the document is WP format. So is that WordPerfect?
word processor.
Word processor. So you're not seeing WordPerfect here. You're seeing some kind of a Xerox created editor, document editor.
And then up here you have the active list, which are documents that you recently had open.
Okay.
And they label the disk that they were on, and then the mode that they were used in, so edit mode or whichever.
Wow, so it recorded the disk that the documents were actually,
So
and
yeah.
the sectors that
So if I actually jump down to this other disk here,
less than 65 sectors remaining. Okay, so as each disk comes up, you get the properties for it.
that's right. And then if you pick a document and load it, it adds into the active list.
Okay.
And then you'll see the disk. So this one's from the opposite disk, the System 1991 disk.
Ah.
And then if you
And then
want it-
in the top, it's telling you things about it.
that's right. Oops, which I just cleared.
So here we got
The other disk again.
printers continually telling you the COM not ready. So obviously, it could be connected to the network.
As I understood, there was actually Ethernet option you
Ethernet.
could get for this, which this one unfortunately doesn't have.
Oh, wow.
When you load up this screen at the beginning, actually, might as well just.
Yeah. What's down here? What are these? What are these panels down here?
So there's a restart button. So they already had that,
Okay.
so you didn't have to actually power it off. But and then the second switch here is for the diagnostic mode. So there's a separate floppy, a diagnostic floppy that goes through a bunch of sequences of tests and gives you a read on the numeric display as to the status.
Okay.
There's also individual testing you can do for the RAM, the CPU, the printer, the screen, the keyboard, and all those types of things as well.
Now, does the printer tell you? Let's look at the printer for a minute. Does the printer actually tell the system what fonts it has, or is that something you kind of have to know?
I'm not sure if it does because it's a daisy wheel, so
Yeah, so it
you
wouldn't.
have to change the font. I have a second font too.
Yeah, this is probably a Diablo printer, because that was the technology Xerox licensed.
Okay.
And yeah, they use these widely. This is a multi-font printer without the big expense and power of a laser printer, which an office really couldn't afford on it as a desktop machine at the time.
It is, as you can see, very robustly built.
Yeah, they're heavy.
It weighs almost as much as the computer.
They are heavy, and it's a major challenge.
But you'll see it does read status back because we've got the cover open and it's flashing cover open
Let's
on
take
the
a look
display.
at that. Look at that. The
So
cover
it
open.
is bi-directional so that it is aware of what's going on the printer.
Mm-hmm.
And
So as we put the cover down, push it down. You have to snap or something. It's amazing to think that here in the basement of this apartment in North Vancouver is probably the only running Xerox 860 IPS on the planet. And these down the back here, I guess we got these impressive cables. Maybe hold up this cable.
yeah, here's
Just the sheer size of these cables.
the printer cable.
Yikes!
So that's fairly substantial for a printer, but I mean it does carry bi-directional communication as well as the power for the printer as well. There's a separate power cord for the printer.
The whole system right here. What other applications then? I don't suppose there were any games on this.
Not that I found on the discs that I got with it, no. I think
It's a document editor.
it was for actual serious work in those days.
How many documents typically would they get on a floppy?
Some of the original discs, they had about, like you see this many on the screen, but there's
Yeah,
actually more than that.
Oh my goodness!
So if you
Take a look at
scroll down, it'll actually go to another
page.
So yeah, I don't know how many are on here. Quite a few.
Look at them all. What are they?
Well, I guess
Let
there's
me get
entry.
close in and see what we've got on
entry
this
numbers.
disc.
So,
Dates on them. 92. Well, these are all yours.
Yeah, these are all stuff that for some reason use this for.
Now, could you plug this into regular power, or would you need like a 30 amp circuit? For that?
It's rated to draw as 10 amps.
10 amps, yeah.
It dims the lights quite nicely when you power it up, but no, a regular outlet is enough to power it.
I suppose the power down here is good enough for some power tools. So
Yeah, I think there's a heater plugged into it, so it's
okay. So then you're
pretty robust,
much
luckily.
assured of-
Yeah. As long as the heater doesn't come on.
What an incredible interface. Probably, there really might not be any video. And you have a print index com.
Yeah, you can print the disc index.
Oh, okay. So if you somehow clicked on that.
Code 2. So code and then brings up these numbers. So
I
code 7
see.
is print, code 2 is display index, in code 3.
And that's the function key. So you're actually hitting the code
key,
the code key,
and then a number.
and then a number, and you're bringing up the function. Okay.
Yeah.
There we are. My goodness. And that's showing what? It's showing the
That's the index of the
index
other disk.
of the other disk.
So I should switch back to this disk. And then display index is code 2.
Go to.
Okay. Try that again.
You're on the right system, 1991 disk.
Oh, that's the wrong here.
The keyboards are very nice. So here we go. So
There's lots of good feel.
Yeah, lots of feel. Pull back.
lots of people like this type of keyboard. Oh, I'm at the print list, so okay, I'm gonna display.
Let's print something.
So
We wanna-
okay.
Let's do a print and watch that.
All right.
The excitement building.
It's let's see. That.
Okay, so
Got the document selected, and then code 7 will bring up print.
and then we'll print.
Then it'll bring up a page with properties. So the print options, you can change the number of pages or the number of copies.
Mm-hmm.
And you just hit accept, and then it'll print.
So where are the options here?
Oh, sorry, at the bottom. Print
Oh, there they are.
options.
Okay.
So you can change the number of pages, or if you want to print 20 copies, you can
Oh my.
increment the number of copies.
Can use form, paper size, non-stop.
And whether it prints the codes, I guess, so the invisible codes on the page, I guess.
Okay, so
for the document.
we're all set to print, and now we're going to load up.
The printer does have some difficulty sucking in the first sheet of paper, so I'll have to coax it gently in.
So here we go. We're going to hit the
So we accept that,
accept that.
and then at the printer end, you have to hit start before it'll actually print anything. So
Okay.
it just sits there. But the amazing thing is, while it's printing, and during this time, you can still open up another document and print things out
So you hit
for
it.
new documents. So you just start,
And there we go.
get in there.
Printing away. And the coats it in. Oh, that's good.
Sound there.
Cool. Very cool.
Bi-directional. Goes one way and then back the other way.
I see.
Which some pictures apparently didn't do. You know, travel all the way back to the beginning and then start right.
That is so cool. Here it comes. Very cool Fox. Very Xerox-like. The whole machine. The reason for being for the, and I think that the machines could share the printers over the Ethernet.
That's correct.
From what I
You
understand.
can have one printer connected to one workstation, and then the other workstations on the network could print to the same printer.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, thank you. Is there anything else that we should know about the Xerox 860 IPS?
Let me think here. Well, maybe we should see it boot up once,
Okay.
because so I'll just hit the reset button, which
Okay.
will start things off, and you don't really have to shut down or anything. It's not like newer machines, so just hit reset.
Ah, the famous Xerox logo.
Get the nice Xerox logo there, and
We're rebooting. Get our camera will focus here. This is as far as I've gotten. I think that I need the right floppies.
that's probably, yeah, you need the system disks, which you can make somehow, because I made my own. I remember how now, because that was
There's
15
a
years
lot
ago.
of loading. Please wait. And here's look at all this.
So see, on this disk we have the word processing module. So
Mhm.
therefore, you can make disks with different modules. There's another module because one of the other floppies I has a other file, not WP files.
Mm-hmm.
And it always prompts you for the date because there's no CMOS clock or anything like
the
that.
battery's gone.
So you just pick
Word
word
processing?
processing. But you
That's
see,
what you're going to run.
it shows the status of all the other things. So no shared printer interface and no communication. So
Right.
that would be the optional Ethernet stuff there. And accept, and then it loads the word processing module, I guess.
Yeah, so it finds out what applications on the disk.
Mm-hmm. It allows you to just choose.
The printer's resetting. It's talking to the printer, obviously.
Mhm.
It's quite a long load time.
Yeah, the 600K floppies, single-sided, so they're
Yeah.
they're the, I guess, probably one of the earlier generations of 8-inch floppies as far as capacity and the like. But yeah, it reads the date off both disks, and there you go.
And then we have now read both disks, and the operating system is, I guess, on the disks.
Yeah, the system disk that you boot off.
That you boot off. So it's pretty much standard like any CPM machine, but boy, does it not look like a CPM machine.
Some behind the scenes work went to make that happen, I bet.
Yeah, and that's sort of the next. Once we put this up on DigiBarn TV and put the pictures up, somebody who worked on this will get in touch with us and say, I'll tell you the answers to all your questions.
That'd be great, because that's something, it's been hard to find a lot of information about it, because I think so few people actually had knowledge of how it operated and how it was designed.
I'm not even sure what Xerox division built them. And I know they were very popular in Canada. They sold a lot of them in Canada. And I guess they had certainly the French versions and French fonts and things like that. But the interesting thing is that this came out before the Xerox Star, and when you think about it, it kind of, for a lot less complicated machine, it satisfied a need that the Star was supposed to do. And you wonder, if there was some kind of competition going on between the Xerox divisions, because this one used more standard parts and stuff like that. You did have to have a network, so the overall cost to get in was pretty low. And you got your documents out.
What would be the price difference we're talking?
Gosh, I think I remember that these were a roughly equivalent to getting a single seat Star.
Oh.
But you didn't have to have a server and a network and the Ethernet. But definitely, if the organization wanted just word processing, they might buy a Wang, which might be a little cheaper, or dedicated workstation, or just a CPM machine like a WordStar machine, like K-Pro was a tiny bit later, but any of the Sol 20 was a little bit earlier, but they could get word processing on those. But I guess the appeal of this was just the full page look and feel of it.
Well, it's kind of this WYSIWYG kind of text editing.
It's a WYSIWYG.
You're seeing, when you look at a document, you're looking at it as it would look on the printed page.
Yeah, and that was the true. But the interesting thing about this machine, if we talk about sort of its pedigree, is you've got a WYSIWYG display oriented toward an impact printer output, not a laser printer, not an all points addressable output.
But I can see how secretaries would enjoy using this machine once they learned it, because it would make their job easier.
Yeah.
Because
it was intuitive for them.
It was like a typewriter, except with more advanced features that you could, and it was easy to figure out. I mean, within having this machine and never having touched one before, it was relatively easy to get into finding files and all that kind of stuff, which, in early other types of computer systems, the hardest part was figuring out how to use the computer.
Yeah, and I think that they look at, probably the argument was, lower training costs, it's so intuitive, and, just secretaries don't have to worry about Control K, Control Q, which was your WordStar type, all these key sets.
Keyboard shortcuts.
And whereas this would get them up to full productivity really fast. And true to form, I mean, they just loved these. I mean, these were loved. They were expensive and whatnot, but they were very reliable machines, and secretaries just absolutely loved them. And I'm sure that when the boss or whoever that was, saw the printer output, they were like, "Oh, this really is a complete machine." Later on, actually, here's sort of a piece of history for you: the Xerox 6085, which came out of the Xerox Star. The Xerox Star was just big and really expensive, but the 6085, there's a guy at Xerox who packaged the 6085 next to a 4045 laser printer, which was also a scanner, and they called it the Documenter. Okay. And they sold more 6085s in that configuration than in the network configuration. And because they hit that sweet spot again, of all it does is sits there, and I can do great looking documents on in this case, a bitmap display and a bitmap, all points addressable output. And that was like about 1986, 87.
Okay.
So in a sense, the Xerox Documenter is the successor to the 860 IPS. The difference being, it probably was more expensive, 16 or 18,000, and it was then competing with a Macintosh SE with a Canon laser writer, which was with PostScript, which you could go out to typesetting, and the Mac had more applications that weren't all written by one company, and so at that point it was sort of, the window was closing on the
Right.
dedicated word processing workstation, and Wang was already sort of feeling the end was nigh. But this 860 being in 1980, I mean, the development would have been in 78, 79, 80.
Right.
That's really early for this kind of effort, and so it's
It does seem ahead of its time, for sure.
ahead of its time, and yet was a limited market success. And I would guess that possibly had an influence somewhere. Although the 860 is one of the lesser known machines that people just don't know about.
Yeah.
And so when they see it and they see the cat, especially, they're like, "Wow, what's that? And what's a touchpad? And what year?" And
Yeah.
because no machines really had mice that were outside a laboratory, and to have a touchpad in the keyboard, which was very intuitive and made sense, it's kind of pretty profound. And we don't know who invented the cat, and
Well, that's the thing. I'd like to find out more about that because, and the thing is, I think that quite important is these dedicated keys that they had, and copy, move, replace.
Yeah.
Now we're used to Command C, Command V, that type of thing, but they had already been thinking that way when they designed this machine, which I think is again one of those things that made it probably very desirable and easy to use for the person actually operating the machine.
And I would bet, because looking at the Star keyboard, and the Star was under development during this period. I think it was in El Segundo or near a park, and I think there was a Dallas group in Xerox that was making them. And I think this keyboard probably came out of the same group, because it definitely looks like a Star keyboard. It's different, but the Star keyboard has keys across the top. These has a stop key. Oh, here's a stop key.
Yep.
Designed to stop what you
and stop.
accept and stop. So that was more like for cancel.
It's like escape would be
Escape.
considered these days,
Right.
Or a no button where it prompts something on the top of the screen,
Both.
and it's waiting for an answer. Accept means yes, and stop means no.
Well, on the Star, stop was also meant to actually stop an entire process. That you don't want to run this program, and according to people I talked to, it never really fully worked. It's like some of those things that programmers are like, how do I stop? The program is running or a print. It's just hard to do in practice. If you've chosen it, you should accept the results.
That's right.
The consequences.
Wait for the printer.
And so we'll just maybe finish here and get a close-up. It's at the Xerox on the top. And I think that, this monitor was probably slightly older. Ours says 860 IPS on the top.
Oh, okay. Tilts as well.
Oh, it tilts.
Which is nice.
It has a really solid base on it.
And it has the nylon mesh over the CRT so that you don't get any glare from lighting.
Oh my goodness!
So
Look at that.
It makes it easier on the eyes
Wow,
to read.
that is fascinating. Look at
But
it.
it's
There's
still
the
very
dim
sharp.
adjustment. So the nylon mesh. So they even thought about that. The sort of anti-glare.
Anti-glare at the time, yeah. But highly effective.
Highly effective. My goodness, I tell you, it's.
I did tweak the focus on it when I first got it because it was a little bit out of focus. But after adjusting it slightly, then it's razor sharp still after all these years, which is says quite a bit.
It says
it wasn't a low quality CRT, that's for sure.
Yeah, a lot of CRTs fail on certainly on the Xerox Alta. It's one of the problems with CRTs, getting one with a working CRT. So, any last thoughts on the?
Well, I'm glad to be getting it to a good home where more people can hopefully get enjoyment out of it, as well as hopefully more people can come forward with more knowledge of it so that all of us can learn more about
and really tell the
history
story of it. Yeah.
Because it has a lot of innovative ideas that you can see came out later in other products, and so as such, it's a little piece of computing history. So Digital Art is the perfect place for it to go.
Thank you, and we'll see if we can actually get it in the vehicle.
Yes, that's the next thing.
So thank you, David Linder, and this is wonderful. And we'll just have one more look at the whole system here. Thank you for preserving it so well all these years. And we'll see if we can get it into this vehicle for the trip to its new home and get it upstairs and hopefully it'll still boot. Anyway, okay. And what's the date today? September 9th,
September 9th.
2006. Probably a full 25 years or 26 years after this would have been in, hit the streets and whatnot. Still running in perfect shape. Okay, signing off from DigiBarn TV.
Take care.
So what are we doing now, David?
So we're just accessing some of the power supply in the unit here, just showing how easy it is to actually access for servicing. So
We got the cover off both sides of the 860 IPS. And you are in electronics, so you know not to touch
yes, we won't be touching anything inside, but we'll
capacitors and...
we'll take a look anyway.
Goodness gracious, look at those big tube-like things.
Yep, it's a very robust power supply.
And still producing juice.
Yep, still working all these years later, so obviously high quality parts to have lasted
We have
26 years.
We have our service records and whatnot, and we have, on this side, we have another panel coming down. We have it's like our boards back here, which probably control the printer and
It's all the memory,
the memory.
the CPU, I guess. Or
Very similar to the Xerox Star and the Xerox 6085s. And here's our huge fuse. So on either side we have two power supplies?
Well,
is that what's
imagine
coming
just
down
all
here?
the different voltages it required. So this is the relatively low voltages, but obviously high current.
Now the processor would be somewhere on one of those boards,
One of those daughter cards there, yeah.
One of the daughter cards, yeah. Quite an amount of
Slides in.
wiring electronics. You can see right through here. Hello. So wonderful. And the printer probably has some serious power supply and electronics in it too.
Well, actually, I suspect most of it's probably handled in here.
Handled in there.
And then it's just piped over.
Yeah, very similar to the Canon laser writer of '84, where they have the rip on. They did the rip on the Mac, and then they moved it to the printer.
Oh, right, yes.
Or actually, the printer had a 68,000, and it did the rip of the postscript. But in this case, there wasn't a whole lot of ripping to do for these pages. So wow, okay. Well, we may as well close her up and see how on earth we're going to load her up. Thank you, David.
No, you're welcome.